I was born and raised here in Nogales. For those of you who don't know me, you guys might know my first address, 861 Western Avenue. You guys know where that is? You do? Not everybody knows where it is. Yeah. So that was my first. That was my first address, and I've been fortunate enough to be working in the produce industry since 1987. And I now own Chamberlain Distributing, which was established in 1971 by my parents 50 years ago. And it's an industry that's very, very important, not only to us as a family, but it should be to you as Nogalians and as border citizens. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what I've been doing since I've been in Nogales, and some of the things that the greater Santa Cruz County Nogales Port Authority does, and what we have as our focuses and our mission for the next 5 years at least. We just had our strategic planning meeting that covers us for the next 5 years as far as what our plans are, and I think that it's extremely important for all of you to know where we're going. I mean, if you guys, and because the landscape of our community is changing on a daily basis. I don't know. Sometimes when you live here, you kind of don't notice. You're saying like, I saw that car yesterday and I'm going to see it here in the next 10 years. Well, all of a sudden, one of these days, you're not going to see it. And you can see some of the changes in our community. And I saw it on 861 Western Avenue. I used to walk to school through the arroyo. That arroyo is now paved and it's in cement now. It's encased in cement. We used to have tremendous problems on Western Avenue with flooding. And we have now a flood control area that is west of 861 Western Avenue. But I don't think anybody really noticed when those things happened. I think if you didn't notice the things that have happened lately, I think you haven't really been driving around Nogales or Santa Cruz County. So one of the things that the greater Nogales Santa Cruz County Port Authority does, and what we look for, is we look for an improvement of the quality of life of the citizens of our county. And that kind of encompasses a whole lot of stuff. But when we say improvement, we're not just improving where our citizens are, but we're trying to make it safer, more efficient, and obviously we want to make it attractive. And we want to remain competitive, because no matter what you think, we live in a competitive society. And our society and our community competes for business. I talk to a lot of senators, and I talk to a lot of, people up in Phoenix and politicians, and they always want to talk about Nogales, and they want to put us in this little box, and they say, let's talk about border security. All right, let's talk about border security. All of a sudden they start talking about immigration and the wall and stuff like that, and I'm like, wait a minute. I talk about economic security, and economic security should be important to every single one of you, because when you are talking to a potential customer, whether you're selling them something or whether they're buying something from you or one of your clients, it is absolutely inherently important that you know what we have and what the community has and what we could have and what the potential and the opportunities are. So that's kind of the things that we try to look at and kind of things that we do. Obviously, one of the biggest things that we've done has been the development and the remodeling and the reconfiguration of Mariposa Port of Entry. These types of things don't happen just out of the blue. That was a $215 million investment that was made in our community by the federal government, but it was pushed by people like Terry Shannon, J.B. Manson, Bruce Bracker, Memo Valencia, Harlan Capon, all the people that started the Port Authority about 17 years ago. And it didn't happen overnight. It was about 8-9 years of planning, and we really lucked out. Because when we did the remodeling of the Port of Entry, we didn't have the funding for it. All of a sudden, 2008 came around and TARP monies were available from the federal government. And our project went from number 36 in the country up to number 2 in the country to be built. And the reason it went to number 2 in the country to be built was because we were shovel ready. So the work has to be done before you actually get the funding. There has to be a dream, there has to be planning, there has to be advocacy, and then you look for the funding. You hope and pray for the funding. Thank God in 2008 the TARP monies were appropriated, and we could start the building of the Mariposa Port of Entry. That Mariposa Port of Entry, for anybody who knows and has been here for a while, was a port of entry that usually supported anywhere between 600 and 700 trucks a year. Well, 600 and 700 trucks a year didn't serve us, didn't serve the business community any longer. It was unsafe for customs and border protection agents, and we were pushing the line every single day. So as a businessman, whether I'm a U.S. Custom House broker, or whether I'm a produce distributor, or whether I'm an owner of a maquiladora across the line, I look for infrastructure to be able to push and increase my business. That's the only way I can do that. So the port of entry was extremely important for us and extremely important for all of you. Because at that time, at that moment, with that economic disaster that we had in 2007, 2008, we were on the verge of what has and what could become Douglas. And I'm not afraid to say it. My grandmother's from Douglas. I have friends in Douglas. But Douglas is in a really, really tough situation. We could have seen ourselves in that situation had the port of entry not been built. And had there not been a group of people from the greater Santa Cruz County Nogales Port Authority that had a vision of something better. Something better for us as businessmen, something better for our children, something better for our grandchildren. That port of entry right now sustains on a daily basis anywhere from 1,800 to 1,900 trucks a day. That's Mexican trucks a day. 379,000 trucks in the year of 2021. That's an increase. That's an increase of about, I think we increased about 6% from the year previous. We're not even to the capacity. The capacity of that facility is over 3,000 trucks a day. And as a businessman, that's what I want to get to. I want to be at capacity with the infrastructure that I have. That's my goal. We should be crossing 3,000 trucks a day through that port of entry. Because every single truck that crosses means that that's a potential new job for a U.S. Custom House broker, for a Mexican Custom House broker, for a distributor like myself, for a broker like there are over 200 brokers here in this community, for an attorney who does work for us, for an accountant who does work for us, for restaurants who feed our employees, for the children who go to our schools. So this is what it encompasses. And these are big plans. These are big futuristic visions. And when you're a small town like Nogales, you have a really hard time getting attention. And the attention that you get is not always the attention that you want. You know that. So the attention that you get, and that's why we created the Greater Nogales Santa Cruz County Port Authority. I'm going to tell you who it encompasses. It encompasses the city of Nogales. It encompasses the County of Santa Cruz, the Fresh Produce Association of the Americas. It encompasses the U.S. Custom House Brokers Association. It encompasses Nogales Community Development Foundation. And now it encompasses the Santa Cruz County Mining Cluster. So there are specific pillars that make the makeup of our organization. And this organization has went from an idea to what it is now. This organization has the wherewithal and the political capital to be able to tell our senators, our legislators, and our federal partners exactly what we want them to know, what we need. 17, 18, 19 years ago, people were always talking about Nogales and Santa Cruz County any way they wanted to. they have this image, whether it's back east or on the West Coast or whether it's in the Midwest, of the border area. Well, we got tired of people telling our story. There's nobody that knows our community better than each one of you. So no one should speak for us. We should speak for each other. And we should speak about not only what's wrong with our community, but with everything that we identify with is wrong with our community, we should back it up with 2 or 3 different ideas of how to change it. And that's what we decided to do 17 years ago at the Port Authority. So I started off telling you about our first project, which was Mariposa Port of Entry. And I got to tell you, it was extremely difficult and extremely frustrating. And you're working with GSA, General Services Administration, and anytime you work with a federal agency, it's really, really stressful. State agencies are tough too. Politicians are tough too. You know, and every single day, for every yes we had 5 no's. You can't do this. You can't do that. This isn't going to work. This is going to work. You don't have the business yet. Well, whether we had the business or didn't have the business, we had the vision and we knew what we wanted for our community, because we saw what we didn't want to become. That leads to other projects in itself. That leads to projects, and it leads to relationships with CBP. It leads relationships with Border Patrol. It led to relationships that right now are extremely important for all of you in your business, with all of your clients that you speak to. I think that one of the greatest things that we're looking at is we are encompassing 379,000 Mexican trucks a year into a small 10 by 10 by 10 by 10 community in Nogales with 22,000 people in our community, that expands on a daily basis to 45 to 50,000 people in our community circulating around us all day long. Whether it's your children in your buses, you're going to church, you've got trucks all over the place. We've got Mexican nationals that are coming in to work and they're coming into, or not to work, but they're coming in to be tourists here, to shop. I mean, we've got a really, really unique opportunity here. But if we don't have the infrastructure, if we don't have the water, if we don't have the power grid, if we don't have the roads, if we don't have the bridges, we have nothing. Somebody had to step up and do it. At the time, the city wasn't doing it. At the time, the county wasn't doing it. So we said, we'll do it. Private citizens, private businessmen. And then we got other people involved in what we do. And other people started listening and started saying, wait a minute, what organization can bring all of these pillars of the community together? The Port Authority. We bring them together all the time. On Friday of last week, actually it was Monday of last week, Senator Sinema called me and she said, Jaime, can you get together, can I get together with about 6 or 7 of you guys and of your group and give me a rundown of what's going on at the border? And it's not like, you know, she doesn't do it on a daily basis. She knows what's going on the border because it's her state. But it's important for this senator to have that face-to-face time to talk to people like me, like Olivia Ainsa Kramer, like Danny Bell, like Memo Valencia, Bruce Bracker, Josh Rubin from Index. I'm sorry, Index is another pillar of our membership. They started 17 years ago as well. They saw the need, even though it's a Mexican-based organization of Maquiladoras Association. They see the need here. Josh is always calling me and saying, and you guys are always getting phone calls. Do you have 10,000 square feet of dry space? Do you have 20,000 square feet of dry space? There really isn't. Do you have 50,000? There's not available. All right? Why? We need to address that. Because if we don't, that customer for Josh Rubin, He's going to find that in Agua Prieta, and he's going to find it in Douglas, or he's going to find it in San Luis and Yuma, or they're going to find it in Texas or in California. This is what I mean about being competitive and staying competitive in what we do. A lot of side projects that came about that I don't know if any of you know during the last 16 years. When we were building the Mariposa Port of Entry, we realized there wasn't enough water pressure. So the water for that area in West Nogales is fed by one of the oldest water pumps that there are in the state of Arizona, which is at the entrance of Keno Springs. It's on the left-hand side. It's a white, old building right next to the bridge. We used to get water from there for West Nogales. That's 1 mile. You can drive it and you're like, wait a minute, I didn't go up 1 mile. Well, you do. You go up exactly 1 mile from that pumping station to what is now the water tank behind Suarez Brokerage, Mariposa Hills up there. So that, and there was no money for that. He said, wait a minute, we're going to build this whole brand new Mariposa Port of Entry, and we don't have the water pressure to be able to give that to that footprint that we have, plus the residents of Mary Welty area. What are they going to do? And then plus we've got to think of whatever other development there will be here. So we have to prepare for that. So we're building the building, and we're thinking, we got it, we got the funding. All of a sudden we're like, wait a minute, we don't have the water. We not only don't have the water, we didn't have the electricity capacity either. And that's where we started talking more with other entities. So it's just not your political, federal, and state partners, but it's your power companies. It's your water companies. So I sit on a small board called the Arizona Regional Economic Development Foundation. I was asked by the governor to sit on that board a long time ago. And it is steered by the Arizona Commerce Authority. And the Commerce Authority is kind of like our port authority. They look for big companies to come in and invest their monies, whether it's with a headquarters or whether it's with a factory, like Lucid. They were part of that negotiation with Intel. Intel is bringing in, I think, $2.8 billion investment in Chandler or something like that. They are tasked with that. And there's a small group that looks at rural Arizona infrastructure needs. So I told the city of Nogales, I said, we need this water tank to be able to have water, enough water to pump not only to the port of entry, but to any and other industries that may want to come here. And we need to secure the water for the Mary Welty West Nogales area as well. So it's like, well, we don't have the money. It's always the thing. We don't have the money. We don't have the money. I said, well, this is a $500,000 grant. Okay, $500,000 grant, but it has to be matched with another city $500,000 match. So I remember clearly we were sitting in San Carlos at an Arizona-Mexico Commission meeting. And the director of customs, who had become very, very friendly with because we'd worked on the design of the port of entry, he says, how do we get this money to be able to assure what we have or what we can have? And I said, well, the city of Nogales doesn't have the money. Well, they'll give us $500,000 if we can find another $500,000. And it'll be $1 million grant, and we can start the water tank. And on a napkin, I remember we said, what if we charge ourselves? And it was J.B. Manson and Mr. Brooks, myself, and Terry Shannon. We said, well, how do we do that? Well, for every Mexican truck that comes in, let's charge ourselves an overweight fee. So our trucks can only come in with about 80,000 pounds. That is by federal law. It's also state law, 80,000 pounds. So we came up with an idea where we would charge ourselves $75 a truck, and you could bring your truck in overweight. And at the time, I used to bring in 24 pallets of cucumbers, and I used to have to unload 4 pallets of cucumbers because I wouldn't make the weight in the United States. And it would be very time consuming, and we'd have to that product would have to wait across the line until we built a whole nother 20 more pallets to bring in another truck. So that was kind of a real pain in the butt. But more than anything, it was trucks idling. And we said, well, how do we get this passed? How do we convince the state government to say, hey, you know what? We're going to allow these people to bring in an overweight because they're going to charge themselves. And the idea was to charge ourselves $75 a truck. 50% would go to the state, 25% would go to the city, and 25% would go to the county. And the city and the county would use those monies to repave or to redo all the streets that had been affected by overweight trucks. You see the cracking, and you see the spidering, and you see the real indentations in the pavement. And we said, all right, let's do that. Then we had to go to the legislature and convince the legislature that in this community, in this 21-kilometer corridor, to allow Mexican trucks to come in, we were going to charge ourselves this money. And with that money, we could actually come in with a matching $500,000 fund to build the water tank so that we could continue building the Mariposa Port of Entry. One thing leads to another. You start meeting politicians, you start meeting legislatures, and all of a sudden they say, wow, why are you doing this? And that's our opportunity. We're doing it because we want to work at the speed of business. And the governor says that all the time. The governor is going to work and our agencies are going to work at the speed of your business. Okay? That's great. Well, it's not always that easy. And it's not easy to convince legislatures. The first time we did it, we proposed it, we didn't get it through. We said, well, can we do it through a special Senate bill? So we did it through the Senate bill. We tried to do it through the House. We couldn't do it through the House. We did it through the Senate. We got it through the Senate. We got it on the floor. It got voted on. And we were allowed to do that. We were the only area in the whole country that allows us to bring our trucks in overweight. There is no other place in the country that you can do this. But the state of Texas saw what we're doing. They saw, and they're not only saying, hey, we're not only going to allow you 21 kilometers, we're going to allow you to go overweight throughout the state of Texas now. So that's a little bit different. We didn't want that. We didn't want the overweight trucks to go all the way through Texas because we wanted the money to stay local. I apologize about this. I can't seem to turn my phone off.
Like we can't make coffee.
Yeah.
Why can't they?
You see the mess.
And it's hot in here.
So one thing leads to another, to another. We finally got the water tank and the water issues done. We finally got the port of entry done. And here we are to this day, crossing 379,000 trucks a year. Our goal isn't that. Our goal is 500,000 trucks of Mexican products every year. Whether it's cattle, whether it's produce, whether it's maquiladora products, whether it's fish, whatever it is, whether it's buses with Mexican tourists coming in, we don't care. We want to increase that because there's a value to all of you and a value to all of us in our community to continue that happen. And for every Mexican truck that comes in through the Nogales, Mariposa Port of Entry, you can figure on 6 more American trucks coming into our community. That's a lot of trucks. That's a lot of cars. That's a lot of people all mixing together. One of our greatest challenges was SR 189, and we were figuring this, and how do we present this? It was a safety issue. It was a security issue. There are 5 churches on Mariposa and, Frank Reed Road? There are 5 churches in that area. The Catholic Church, Yeah, the Baptist Church, the Catholic Church,
Methodist.
the Methodist Church. We have down there we have Nuevo Amanecer.
Two Christians, those Christians.
So we're missing.
We have the high school, which when I was in high school, nobody had a car. Everybody's got a car now. All the students have a car. All freshmen, everybody's got a car. And not only that, Frank Reed Road didn't exist past the typing. That's the typing. There used to be, remember? You remember. I'll tell you a story. She remembers. Yeah, I crashed back there. So that whole community didn't exist. Mariposa Hills didn't even exist. So none of the development was done. The apartments weren't even there. That was all just hills.
Yeah.
And that was a short time ago.
Have a bonfire.
I never drank. I didn't drink. So
You drink water.
I drank at Ghost Town. So it Ghost Town and even Monte Carlo didn't exist the way it existed. And that was a short time ago. That was 35 years ago, 36 years ago. It wasn't that long ago. But SR 189 was really, really a challenge. And I had a tremendous opportunity in working with a tremendous partner in Director Halakowski at Arizona Department of Transportation. He's my tocayo now. I mean, we are really good friends. Because he recognized what the value of Nogales is. It's funny because a lot of people from outside of here, they see us and they're like, you live on the border? And there's two reactions. You live on the border is like, do you lock your home? Do you have a gun? I mean, how do you feel? Are you secure? And it's either that reaction or it's the reaction like John Halakowski. What an incredible, vibrant, awesome culture. What an incredible community you guys all are to work with, how focused you are, how your direction is. He just had a great time working with us. I'm teaching him Spanish, and it's been a struggle, but we're doing it. And I figure we're going to start just with the bad words. But we're really, really good. But we're really, really good friends, and we traveled with each other to Mexico City. And you would say, well, what is the director of Arizona Department of Transportation doing in Mexico City? Well, Peña Nieto President Peña Nieto was looking at his infrastructure for his country, and he says, our highway, which is Highway 15 from Mexico City to Nogales, our highway is in disrepair, and we need to be able to have the flow of people and international commerce flow better. So he asked Governor Ducey to lend him the transportation director for advice. And he takes me with him. And we start talking about the highway. Well, it was a $1.2 billion Mexican investment. And it is almost done. It should have taken 6 years, but it's almost done. There's just a little piece left. But if you drive all the way to Mexico City now, you don't have to go through some of the cities. You don't have to go through Hermosillo. There are bypass roads in Hermosillo, in Obregón, in Navajoa. There are bypass roads all the way to Mexico City. I was there because I asked him to start the whole project in Nogales. I said, start in Nogales. Because I know Mexican politics, and I thought, well, something's not going to get finished, right? So I wanted him to start in Nogales. They didn't start in Nogales, but we made the effort. But those types of relationships were really, really important for not only Director Halakowski, they were important for Governor Ducey, and they're important for Nogales, Arizona. Because we are the place that people always look to see what can we try. We're always doing pilot programs. So one of the issues that we worked on just recently, the SR 189 project was $139 million project, $134 million project. It came in a little bit under budget, and we're a little bit under time, and next Friday we're going to inaugurate it. And it's already in working condition. And hopefully it helps our community. And hopefully it gets your kids away from a lot of the trucks. We wanted to separate a lot of the trucking industry away from our community to make it safer. But that's only part of our corridor system that we're working on. We're working on one of our biggest projects right now is the Ruby Road Rio Rico interchanges. So at 4 o'clock, if any of you know, you're trying to get off on Rio Rico Drive or on Ruby Road, 4 o'clock in the afternoon to about 6 o'clock in the afternoon, you've got trucks and semis that are halfway on the shoulder and halfway on the highway, and they've got a green light. You can see it from far away, but nobody's moving. It's really, really rough. So we identified the largest or the fastest growth area in Santa Cruz County is east and west of Ruby Road. I don't know if you guys knew that, but that's the fastest growth area, east and west of the highway on Ruby Road. But the Rio Rico interchange also has to be open, and the frontage roads have to be open. So we have worked on a plan with the Fresh Produce Association, the Custom House brokers, and all of the Port Authority members have all approved a preliminary plan that was presented to us by a feasibility study of ADOT. ADOT and the Transportation Board of the state of Arizona knows about this issue. I have testified myself about 25 times in front of the board. My previous chairman, Memo Valencia, and Bruce Bracker have also testified about this interchange. We've been to the legislature about this, and all of our federal legislators know about this as well. In the House and in the Senate. They know about the danger. So this is the second phase of our infrastructure system. So SR 89 and State Route 189 and Mariposa Road is fantastic. Hopefully you all have used it, and hopefully you feel safer. Because that was the purpose. And hopefully you feel that it's more efficient for us, for you, for your kids, and for the business community. And that's what it was meant to be. Going with the interchanges at Ruby Road and Rio Rico is a little bit more of a challenge. We're not on the 5-year plan, but we're in the plan. We're in a 10-year plan, but we need it like immediate, right? So it's up to the Port Authority to push this as quickly and as fast as we can. And to get the funding for it as well. It's not going to be easy. When we first did the feasibility study, it was about $25 million. Right now, I could probably tell you it's about $36 million. And by the time it actually gets done and you start doing this, maybe it'll be a $50 million project. And maybe you're going to say, hey, well, wait a minute. Well, we needed to knock down the bridge and make it wider. And I got to tell you, every time you make a change, you run the risk of losing the project. It's really, really tough.
It's a small bridge.
It's a small bridge. It's not wide enough. It's been recarpeted with cement, re-cemented twice already. But to be honest with you, you can have smaller bridges if you have arteries with the correct amount of throughput. So when you look at it, you say, well, it's a small bridge. We need a wider bridge. We need a bridge. When I first started talking, I said, I want a bridge like Irvington. Is it Irvington? And Valencia. I said Valencia.
That takes you over the railroad.
Yeah.
Because the train, when the train goes, there's sometimes you wait for half an hour.
So the ADOT does not have jurisdiction of where the train tracks are. ADOT's jurisdiction goes pretty much to the corner of Pilot and what is now going to be the new future Loves. So I think the county has an idea for that, and we're trying to incorporate a bridge that goes over the train tracks
That would be
to go straight into the project that has already been approved by the stakeholders. So we're working on that. I'll tell you what, the when is not an easy thing. I want to throw this thing away. The when is not an easy thing. You know, if I go through things the way the Mariposa Port of Entry was, that was 10 years. Okay, 10 years to get that done. If you
alive in 10 years.
well, you know, but I'll be here. And
Remember.
I'll be here, and I'll obviously be pushing this, and that's okay, because I'm born and I'm raised here, and I think there's a value.
That's why you use the South River Road.
Well, there's another story about South River Road. But not only that, we have to secure our water because then nothing can be developed without our water. So we had a big problem in the International Outflow Interceptor. I don't know if you guys know what the IOI is, but the IOI, can you smell it from here? The IOI is a huge problem because it is a 50, 60-year-old sewer pipe which takes Mexican sewer water and we treat it at the plant behind here, behind the produce warehouses here. Well, there's a couple of things that can be done. Mexico can treat their own water. They can do their own retention detention ponds, and they can treat their own water. If they take their water, it will be a dramatic and significant loss to Santa Cruz County.
Absolutely.
We take that effluent and we clean that and we let it go into our watershed, and therefore we are replenishing our watershed every single year with that water. If we did not have that, it would be a significant loss. About 15 years ago, the mayor of Nogales at that time started a lawsuit with the state of Arizona against IBWC, and IBWC, which is the International Boundaries and Waterways Commission, and said, we don't want responsibility. We have leaks and cracks and we have sewer going into the arroyo all the time. We don't want responsibility for this. We should never have responsibility for this IOI. This is a federal problem. You guys take it. Well, that lawsuit's been going on for a long time and it just got settled. We were very much involved in the negotiation of the settling of that lawsuit, in of the fact that an owner was never established, or I should not say an owner. The management and the responsibility of the IOI was not established. But what was established was a $38 million investment to put a interlining into that pipe so that we would have no more leaks for XY amount of miles. That project is starting this month, along with some other projects that we helped gain the money for, in lining with riprap around the arroyo that is not encased with cement. So all of these things you're saying, well, what does this have to do with the Realtors Association? Well, every time you guys have a customer or have a client who says, I want to live in Nogales, these are the things that you can tell them that you're doing. You're not a community that's just sitting there looking for help. You're a community that has a lot of people that are looking at the future. And they're saying, you want to stay 22,000 people in Nogales? Do you want to continue to be a community of 40,000 people? Or do you want to start attracting people? And do you want to start attracting businesses here? And so I'm trying to tell you all of this and as much as I can so that you guys have some tools in the toolbox. I'm going to take your phrase. Some tools in your toolbox so that you say, you know what? We're not just sitting on our hands here. We have a lot of issues. But there's a lot of communities like us who have issues. Thank God we don't have the weather issues that most of the East Coast and the Midwest has. Thank God we don't have the violence issues that Chicago has or South Tucson has. Thank God we don't have those personal issues in general terms, I can say. We're a nice community. We have nice people. We have polite people. We have educated people. We have educated children. Is there stuff that we can work on? Yeah. We can work on our education system. We can work on our watershed issues. We can work on our infrastructure issues. And we're doing that on a daily basis. I can't tell you my schedule besides my work and besides what I do with the Ports and Infrastructure Committee with the state of Arizona. I can't tell you, it's just crazy. I'm going nuts. I've been going nuts for 15 years. But if somebody doesn't do it, like the Terry Shannons or the Bruce Brackers or the J.B. Mansons or the Memo Valencias, somebody's got to do it. If not, we just give it up. Unless you guys just want to give it up to the city or to the county. And if that happens, it will be a much slower process. Think about it. I'm gonna give you an idea.
Stay where you're at, honey.
I'm gonna give you an idea.
Run for mayor.
I'm better off where I'm at. We got SR 189, the planning, the funding, and the actual construction of a $134 million project. And we started after the new Chase Bank was announced and after the dog park in Meadow Hills was announced. We got a $134 million project planned. We had the vision and we had the funding before those other projects have been done. Give me a break. And we're not stopping. This Ruby Road Rio Rico interchange with the frontage roads, it has to be with the frontage roads because we have a school there, we have DEA there, and all of those cars, they interact and commingle with maybe 300,000 trucks out of the 380,000 because the rest go downtown to where my facility is and my new facility. So about 300,000 of those trucks go to that area. That's amazing. That's difficult and that's dangerous.
It is.
And the throughput is dangerous and difficult.
I'm surprised that there hasn't been many deaths. because-
Gracias a Dios.
Yes, there has.
Gracias a Dios.
It's awful. So scary.
But we're not waiting until we have an intersection crash at Mariposa and Frank Reed Road. We didn't wait. We saw that and we said we can do better. We're seeing this and we're identifying this and we can do better. We're seeing the IOI issue and we're saying we can do better and we can help with the negotiation. But it's not just that. It's in a lot of different things. But we have to stay competitive as a state and we have to stay competitive as a community. I always bring stuff and then I never read anything or give anything because I'd rather just talk from my experiences. But if you have any questions for me, I would be glad to answer them as they relate to you as realtors and as they relate to you as ambassadors of our community. I really think all of you are ambassadors from our community because each time you get a phone call from back east, somebody says, "Hey, I'm moving to the border. I'm either moving to McAllen or I'm moving to Nogales."
What is it?
You tell me what would you like? You tell me. So you guys have to sell us. We're trying to give you those tools to sell us.
Just so that you can turn the amount of vehicles that are crossing, can you turn those into a dollar amount? Just so our visitors can see what dollar amount can cross. You can go by a month or you can go by the best year, whatever you want, Jaime, just to throw in a dollar amount.
So we, this is 2022, we partnered, the Fresh Produce Association and the Port Authority partnered with the University of Arizona on a economic, a study on the economic viability of the produce industry and what the produce industry meant to the community. It was about a $400 million contribution to the between wages, between not just direct wages, indirect wages, spending. It was about a $400 million contribution to Santa Cruz County. That's just one industry. That's just the produce industry. I can't even begin to tell you what's going to happen when the mine comes in Patagonia.
Oh.
We are going to be, I don't know how you guys feel about mining, but I don't necessarily look at it as mining. I look at it as our economic security for the next 50 to 60 years. What is going to be mined in that facility, I just saw the feasibility study. It would be just an initial investment of $1.7 billion in Patagonia. $1.7 billion before they take the first scoop of any materials out of there. That's an amazing thing. What they're going to be paying people to work there is about 6 times the state average. 6 times the state average is what the starting salaries are going to be over there. I can't tell you, and you know, you hear all this that, you know, they're facing a lot of opposition over there, and they're facing, you know, a lot of, you know, environmentalists don't want this to happen. This mine is 100% underground, and about 85% is on private land. They own the land. They own the land. They bought the land. And underground. And underground, about 80 to 90% of the trucks will be electric trucks. And the majority of those will not be manned. That means we will probably have truck drivers sitting in a room just like this one. Each one of these people will be driving a truck in Patagonia. And they don't have to be in Patagonia. Just like there are bombs being dropped in Ukraine right now from Nevada. So, where we're going with this mine, it will be the most ecologically and environmentally safe mine in the history of the country.
How about the water?
The water there has been more than, I believe it was already a $60 million investment in the watershed, improvements. They spent $60 million in what Asarco left behind, in cleaning that whole thing. And what they're doing with the water now, they're going to go down about 3,000 feet. And in 3,000 feet, they have to have Wi-Fi down there. They have to have 5G capabilities. They have to have air conditioning down there. You're working in an atmosphere that is typically 120 degrees, and you're going to make it 77 degrees, 3,000 feet underground. And the materials that are going to be mined there are not found in North America anywhere. Manganese is not found here. It is found in China, and it is found in Ukraine. The lead, the zinc are all critical materials for the country. So, is this going to happen? It's going to happen. It's going to happen.
They gave us a presentation.
When do we have a presentation?
Who'd you speak to? Pat Reisner? Pat sits on my board. Pat sits on my board. He's a great speaker. I took him with me on Friday with Senator Sinema. He had not spoken to her. He gave her an overview real quick. I said, his feasibility study is typically about 45 minutes long. I told you, you got to condense all of that in about 7 minutes. He said, I'll try, Ivan. And but he did it. And I think it was really important. So I think what we're seeing here is you're going to start to see a landscape change. And there's some great opportunities. And I'm really, really proud of what you guys do, because I see you working every day. And I think that every single day, I know you work every single day, 24 hours a day. Even while you have your wine, you've got your phone with you. But I also look at you as partners in, helping me and helping my board and helping everybody that is trying to improve our community. And I look at you as ambassadors. And all I can do is to ask you, anytime you speak to anybody, whether it's your family members back east or whether it's friends in the Midwest, try to change the narrative. That's your responsibility. Change the narrative. You tell people what you want to know. Do you enjoy yourself here? Yeah, you enjoy. I have a home in Tucson. My wife and my son have been up there, and I stay up there a couple times a week. I don't find myself there yet. I find myself here. Zula's has been closed for 2 months, and I drove there 3 times in the last 2 months, and I'm sitting in the parking lot almost crying. That's how the community is ingrained in me. But we have to look out for our community. And we have to have this vision. And it doesn't matter to me if it takes 10 years to get this done, or 8 years or 7 years. And I don't care if Senator Sinema may not be the senator anymore, or Senator Kelly or Governor Ducey's not going to be there. And it could be another party and it's somebody else. It's my responsibility. It's our responsibility to make friends with who's ever there, whoever those decision makers are. You make them see the value of our community, because you know the value of the community. You guys got any questions?
Amen, absolutely.
The Deacon Port of Entry, along with a big array of things that we're looking at, is the remodeling of the Deacon Port of Entry. The Deacon Port of Entry, every time there's a big flood across the line, It gets flooded with the sewer water, and the sewer water comes up through the grates, and actually our agents are actually stepping in sewer water at the 1, 2, and the 1 through 5 gates, actually. It is the only port of entry in the country where the actual building and the second story is at the international boundary line. That is absolutely unsafe for our agents there, and it is no 21st century port of entry should be that close to the border. We need to have a buffer zone just like the Mariposa port of entry. So we are working on right now, and thank God with some money that became available with the Infrastructure Act, we just got $500,000 to do the feasibility study. Any of these things start off with a feasibility study. So we got $500,000 to do the feasibility study. That feasibility should be ready in about 16, 18 months. And then after that, we have the basis of where to go and how to start the build out and the design. We have an idea of what we'd like to see. If it were up to me, we'd just raise the whole thing and push it back. It needs to be pushed back to about 200, 250, 300 feet at least. The egress and egress of the building will probably also be changed. So that means we have to work with the Mexican government in Secretaría de Relaciones Exteriores, with SAT. So it's a lot of stuff that goes on when you change and you reconfigure the port of entry. Because all of a sudden your port of entry on the US side is this big, and the facilities on the Mexican side are this big. And that's how we ended up getting a curve in Mariposa, because they didn't want to spend any more money in order to come in straight into the 12 passenger vehicular lanes that we have. So the DeConcini Port of Entry is one of our main projects. It is not the main project, because I can't say it's the number 1 or number 2 or number 5 or number 10, because we're working on everything all the time at all times. Whatever comes up, that's the issue we have at the moment. But the DeConcini Port of Entry will be remodeled before I die.
So it's a long,
Before I die. I promise you that.
and it's a long ways away then, if your feasibility study, you almost 2 years.
Everything is always a long way away. Everything is all, but I said something earlier. You have to be shovel ready. And if you're not shovel ready, you're never going to get the funding. Federal government just doesn't come over and say, hey, yeah, you know what? You guys have an idea, and your idea is about 8 years away. You got to do the environmental studies. You got to do the impact studies. You got to do everything that you got to do. You got to do the design. And then we got to do it with GSA, General Services Administration. It's horrible. Whatever cost me $10 with GAS will cost $35. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And then we're going to do it a lead building, just like we did as green as possible, just like we did with Mariposa. That adds on millions of dollars to the cost of the whole thing, and adds on lots of time to the whole thing. I'm going to give you an example. You talk about stuff that takes a long time to set and frustration. Union Pacific is on the west side of Mesa. They're doing 6 brand new miles of rail. Brand new miles of rail. It's flat. It's really nice. Perfect. And almost no earthwork at all. They've been working on it for 3 years. They got 18 months to go. And they've been working on it for 3 years and 18 more months to go.
Wow.
Do you know what the cost is of that rail for 6 miles? Take a guess. Right now.
3 million.
$3 million. $105 million. Right now for 6 miles of rail. Brand new. Flat as can be. Away from any commercial buildings. Away from anything. That's Union Pacific. $105 million. In 18 months, that'll probably be $130 million. By the time they get started. For 6 miles of brand new track. Everything is going up as quick as possible, and everybody has a need all of a sudden. So I will tell you, we're late on DeConcini. We should have started working on DeConcini as soon as we finished Mariposa. We were so thankful we finished Mariposa. We were like, you know what? How do we go in and ask for more? Well, we did ask for more, and we said, forget it, because if our community doesn't do it, somebody else is going to do it. Peoria is going to do it. Chandler's going to do it. Kingman is going to do it. Yuma's going to do it. San Luis. San Luis just got $300 million to do a brand new port of entry. And we supported the 2-port solution in Douglas. We supported those. Because once those get funded and they start building, then ours goes higher. Then our DeConcini goes higher. So let them start their ports of entry in San Luis. Let them start their port of entry in Douglas. That's going to save their community. And then we can get started with ours. Whether that's 10 years, 8 years, 5 years, whatever it may be. But that's going to happen. And that whole downtown area is going to change. I don't know if retail will ever come back.
I hope.
It's coming back slowly.
I don't know if retail will ever come back. But if it does, that's great. We have a port of entry that will be modern for all those people in those vehicles, for all those people that are and those pedestrians that are coming there, and it will change our landscape once again. But we have to be open to ideas and being modern as well. Somebody told me the other day, are you going to tear down the old customs building? And the old customs building is built with these big old blocks like the old high school from the quarry. From the quarry. And they're beautiful. They're really great. The building is terrible.
Doesn't matter, but it's history. It's historical.
And historical doesn't fit in the new footprint of a brand new port of entry. Can we try to save some stuff? Yeah, there's stuff that we probably can't save. But the interior, the electricity in there, the water in there, the sewer in there, it's horrible. It's bad. I mean, you're walking and you go through the floor. The sewers don't work, nothing works. I mean, it's just a shell of a building. But the whole downtown in the near future will be totally different. Just the way Mariposa is different right now, just the way you're going to see Rio Rico and Ruby Road very, very different very, very soon. So I'm hoping that you guys can help us in our efforts. I know you guys have some changes with your board and your association as well. But however they come out and whatever you guys decide, we're still here. We're still going to do the work.
We hope to revitalize downtown, and hopefully with the pedestrian crossing, it could be open 24 hours. That way we can go to La Roca at all hours of the night. We can work on that.
Yeah, midnight at least.
nada perradas, like when used to stay in years, remember?
There's a lot of things that and when it comes down to it, Anita, it's all funding. It's all what can you do, what you can do. We just got a $700,000 grant from the state of Arizona to build cold rooms at our facility, because when we were building the Mariposa Port of Entry, we had to take the cold rooms off, because what we thought we were going to get in $230 million was end up like $217 million. We didn't get all the funding. So we had to cut stuff off so we don't have a refrigerated space at the Port of Entry. So now we're trying to build that, right? And we've been trying to build that now for 2 years. And that's a gift. It's about a $1.2 million gift from the Custom House Brokers Association, the Fresh Produce Association, and a direct gift from the state of Arizona legislature, which absolutely almost never gets done, a direct appropriations from the legislature for an infrastructure project. And we convinced them to give us that money. We got to get started with it, or else we got to give it back. So these are the types of things that we're just always working on. But I want you guys to know, when people tell you something and they point out something bad about our community, it's your responsibility to point out something good. And there's a lot of good. So thank you very much for your time.